Welcome to the Meltzone podcast from October 28th, 2019. It is episode 25, and I'm Tom.
And I'm Stefan. And Tom is, back from another trip to the US. He was attending Earth in, next to Washington State.
Washington, D.C., Washington State is the other side of the US.
Oh, damn it, yeah. Washington,
It's
D.C.
confusing.
It's confusing. He talks a little bit about his experience being there, how it's differed from Murph, and also he was judged in the 3D printing, or in the 3D Banshee speed printing challenge. Maybe shares a couple of tips how those people were able to finish their 3D Banshees in just 14 minutes and still, look decent in the end. We also chat a little bit about printing techniques or our experiences with printing PLA in different manners that the material comes out matte or glossy, which might be nice for a couple of decorational 3D prints. And I don't know, it's not really taking some time off, but I am currently tinkering a little bit on my own, not filming anything, and start again to enjoy tinkering because it's less of a job and more of a hobby again.
Yeah, vacation sure sounds nice. But in the news section this week, which is most of the podcast actually, but there's tons of stuff to talk about. Stuff is on fire. Prusa is on fire. The UK is on fire, politically speaking. How that's going to impact E3D. The company Lulzbot is burning down, and, well, not literally, but like from a business standpoint. And NordVPN is also taking fire for not communicating some breaches all that well, and what our conclusion from that is. Then is a follow-up from the topic of the terrorist attack in Halle that we talked about last week. Of course, what's coming out is, companies claiming, oh, we've got a solution for it. We will just prevent firearms parts from being printed. That sure is going to work well. Also, Fusion360 is making some changes again to its subscription models. We try and figure out what has actually changed and how things used to be, which is always, kind of tricky to figure out if you know what's up right now. But is actually anything changing? A discussion topic, and also a discussion on the Elegoo water washable resin, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, or somewhere in between. And we also have a question.
We have one question about strange noise from the extruder area during preheating of the printer. And we discuss where that noise could be coming from. Really interesting. So you're back from Murph.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't talked for quite a while.
There's been TCT, there's been Earth, there's Formnext coming up in about 4 weeks.
Oh, yes.
God, this feels like early 2018, where it was just on a different show every 2 weeks as well, and it just eats you up. Like, don't get me wrong, shows are fun, but there's a limit to how many you should be doing.
Yeah, and I think only posting interviews on your channel is not the thing, your channel stands for. So,
I mean,
even though they are really great,
if you look at the numbers, the last 30 days or something have been the most successful on the channel ever. So I'm not gonna complain, but yeah, the show interview content does get old somewhat quickly. And walking down to the studio and not having the teleprompter set up and being like, wow, this feels weird. I've not used that for that's wrong. So yeah, Earth was great. Earth was, I mean, you've been to Murph, you know what that is like.
Yeah.
So to give you a bit of a perspective, Earth is like the polished, well done, organized version of Murph. It's still very much got the same vibe. But you could actually move through the alleys through the show. There were great projects. There was a stage that was organized. It's like the folks actually did some planning ahead of time. and delivered a show that was really easy to attend and really nice to attend.
Who actually organizes Earth? Printed Solid?
I think they're involved, yeah, but it's no idea.
Okay.
The Earth team.
The Earth team, okay.
It's just call them by what they are, yeah.
Well, I've just seen a couple of shots of the venue in your interviews. They are using like a
sports arena.
A sports arena.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of space in there.
Yeah, and it's part of the Harvard, not Harvard, but the Hartford Community College.
Okay.
Not quite the same, but yeah. So it's obviously there's parking there, and it's just part of that large structure. Yeah, it's nice. It feels like, as far as what the location is, it feels similar to Murph because it is out in the woods. Kind of. There's not a lot there. But then again, if you look at where it is, like it's pretty close to Baltimore and Washington, D.C. So it's somewhat easy to get to and to get out of. But yeah, the show's been great. But as always, 2 days. I was there for a bit. How long was it there for? Yeah, a bit more than 48 hours.
Oh, come on.
And that was as always not enough. 1 weekend of fist bumping people and interviewing and trying to live stream and trying to just see some stuff. It's just not long enough.
Okay. So, yeah, really, really cool. So one of the things we have been talking before in the podcast and where I was like really interested in was the 3D Banshee speed challenge. And you actually were one of the judges.
Yes.
You didn't like follow all of the prints that were done, but can you just maybe summarize how good looked like the best Banshee and who actually won?
Yes. Oh, who won? Crap.
Like who won? Like
so
what was the printer used for? Like the
God,
best or the fastest?
I don't even know. But I think it was like some custom Core XY. But
okay.
Anyways, so I was one of the judges, and the judging rules were kind of set before we started. So there were 4 categories, like vertical, horizontal surfaces, overall quality. There were a few preset categories that there were disciplines that were judged on, and there were 2 different stacks of benches, or 2 different disciplines. So one was a 30-minute Banshee and the other one was a 60-minute Banshee. And for the 60-minute one, there was no bonus or malus system if you finished earlier or later. But for the 30-minute one, there was like 1 extra point for every minute that you were done faster. Mm-hmm. So there weren't a ton of entries. I think people were kind of scared of submitting their Banshee because they thought, well, I'm not going to win, so why submit it anyways? Now, to be fair, it was a valid concern because there was 1 Banshee in there. No idea who it was from. Sorry if I forgot all your names, but there was a live stream. You can watch the entire recording of that. There was 14 minutes, and it looked better than some printers managed to do in 1.5 hours. So yeah, you could tell that it was pretty fast and sloppy, but overall really good quality. There were some that just downright failed.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as how people got fast Banshees to print, I think it mostly boils down to having a really well tuned in printer, to having a really solid motion system. I think some of them were printing as fast as 200 millimeters a second. Mm-hmm. So you need the hardware to support that. Controlling thermals, having a good part cooling system in there. And yeah, there were not a ton of tricks used. Like there was no non-planar, as I had suggested. There was no. Well, there may have been some variable infill, but mostly it was very low infill on the print. So like 5%, if at all, just to hold up the horizontal surfaces ever so slightly. And yeah,
probably only just 1 perimeter.
Well, most of them, I think, were actually 2 because none of them had the infill poking through quite significantly. There were some that had Z-wobble, ringing, of course, all the speed artifacts that you'd expect, blobbing, gaps in the shells. But that's just tuning in your printer and having really good hardware to support it. But yeah, the software tuning side was somewhat underrepresented, I think.
Okay. Quite unfortunate. I actually really hoped for like a revolutionary new technique, but still interesting. Maybe some people found it interesting and might be also like submitting their Banshees next year.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the mode of participation was you had to print the Banshee on site.
Mm-hmm.
So they checked with you when you started the print. So as you mentioned, you've read through the rules. I actually haven't, even though I was one of the judges. The time was taken from the moment the printer started printing, extruding filament. So preheat times are taken out of the equation. So one of the officials of the competition was there, checked that the printer actually printed that Banshee, and then at the end of the print, the Banshee was supposed to be left on the bed itself. So they would come back and then actually remove it from the printer together with the participant. So yeah, you had to print the Banshee on site, because otherwise, how would you verify that it was actually printed in 30 minutes or 60 minutes? So yeah, lots of fun, lots of really good prints actually for like 14 minutes or 20 minutes. The Banshees did look really, really good. Yeah, and I think the fastest, or the winning 30-minute Banshee was basically on par with the winning 60-minute Banshee. So that was interesting.
Cool. Very nice. Yeah. So yeah, now you're back. You just said that you're also going to be at Formnext this year. You haven't been attending for the last 2 years, or even
2
more?
or 3 years. I was at Euromold once. That's the same show, right?
Yeah, that was the same show like since 4 years ago. And then it started becoming Formnext. And so I have been there for the last 3 years. And I think you've never been there during that time.
Yeah, I've never been to the Formnext. So I think I caught the last Euromold when it was called Euromold for the last time. But this year, it looks like everyone's going to be there.
Yeah. Joe, 3D printing nerd. Joel, 3D printing nerd. Joe, 3D maker noob. Come on, that's hard.
3D maker nerd.
You're gonna be there. I'll be there for probably 2 days. Just like walking around. I won't be taking any videos or things like that. But still,
same for me. Yeah.
Just meeting a lot of people. So Formnext, especially in comparison to something like Earth or Murph or a Maker Faire, is just a much more a show for professionals or for professional 3D printing. So you usually don't find your cheap 3D printers there. But Joseph Prusa was there last year?
I don't know if he was there last year, but I was going to say that this year there are a lot of like the consumer 3D printer brands there. So E3D are going to be there, Prusa are going to be there. Who else? A bunch of other like brands that you'd know from the sort of 3D printing that we do on our YouTube channels. And it's interesting to see that it looks like Formnext is opening up to that more. Whereas TCT, I think 3 or 4 years ago, actually did a radical cut from being all B2B to going to, oh yeah, this is the new big thing, consumer 3D printing, and was like half the show of just consumer stuff. And then over the years, it's been tuned down. So TCT is moving towards the more industrial B2B side again.
Maybe, I don't know, but also on Formnext, there has been, so I think 3D printing is not as hyped anymore as it used to be, and going to such a venue is very expensive. And maybe they had the problem that they couldn't fill both like stages again, so they also tried to open up a little bit in that direction to the more maker market and not only the professionals and prosumers. Might be one of the reasons.
If I remember correctly, I think Euromold was like 3 exhibition halls or something.
Yeah, but they did 3D printing and injection molding.
That's right, yeah. Oh, so that's separate now.
That's totally separate now.
Okay.
Formnext is now just 3D printing. There's still a couple of Chinese mold makers. I don't know why they're still there.
But haven't gotten the message.
Yeah, probably. But it's still interesting. It's a nice mix between like taken a look at the real professional metal 3D printers, and also some smaller companies out there, 3DK Berlin, some filament makers, some 3D printer manufacturers. E3D is going to be there for the first time. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, and One Click Metal are going to be there, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I'll be there. They were the first ones to point me towards Formnext, because for them it's like their big release of the machine.
I'm really looking forward.
I'm trying to think if I'm telling stuff that I'm not supposed to talk about, but yeah, it's all good. It's all good. We've done an interview. It's all on YouTube.
Yeah.
So they'll be there, and for them, it's going to be the big event where it shows, hey, is this actually something people care about?
Yeah. And Formnext is going to be, I think, from the 19th to the 22nd of November.
21st? I think 21st.
So
3 days, 19, 20, 21.
No, it's 4 days. I think
4 days, okay.
It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And usually...
Yes, you're correct.
Usually the party on the first day is very good. At the how's it called? How are they called? Like a Berlin startup company. They have really good food there every year.
Okay, well, trade show parties are a thing of their own.
Mm.
Though as visitors, you're probably not making it into that.
You are. They are just closing down the booths at 6:00, and everybody who's still in there gets free food, free drinks. That's kind of nice.
Okay, because usually they kick everyone out who's not an exhibitor or...
No, they don't do it there, and that's really cool. I hope it's still going to be like that this year. Unfortunately, I'm not there for the first day.
Yeah, me neither. So we're both going to be there for the 20th and the 21st.
Exactly.
All right. So fist bumps again, I guess, for whoever finds us there.
Yeah. We've shortly been talking before the podcast about things that we are currently doing. And I said, I'm currently enjoying myself again, doing some tinkering without filming. So... Well, how
do you actually do that? So the mindset I always get into is, hey, if I'm doing this project, it's something that I care about. It's something that I'm interested in. So probably my YouTube audience is interested in that as well. So I'm gonna turn this project that I care about into something that is a YouTube video. How do you just throw away that fantastic content?
Two things. I have a second job, or I have a first job, which pays if I'm not doing YouTube. And the second thing, I need to relax from time to time. And tinkering was always something I really, really enjoyed. And since starting YouTube, tinkering has become work. And even though it's enjoyable from time to time, it's still work. You always have to think, how are you doing that? Where do you put the camera? Did I write down everything? How's the angle? And things like that. And I just thought so. I posted the review of the Sapphire Pro 3D printer on Saturday. And this is my project at the moment. I purchased a bunch of stuff at E3D, and I just want to tinker with that machine at the moment. There will be like a part of a video where I put the Hermes Extruder on the Sapphire Pro 3D printer. But other than that, it's just enjoying myself, upgrading it, and making it to making a nice printer out of it. Since 3D printer reviews and 3D printer upgrade is not like the things I mostly do on my channel, I thought, just screw it. Enjoy yourself. You have 1 week of holiday. Play around with it. Maybe there's something coming out of it in the end, but it's not primarily a video. And I enjoy it so much. Oh,
I bet, yeah. Again, like I said, that takes some... Well, you have to convince yourself to actually do that, because the default mode, I think, for both of us has become, this is a video project now, and it does take away that that flow of just being able to do things without having to worry about cameras and pacing and all that.
And it's like taking me half or a third the amount of time it otherwise would do.
For sure.
And I can have greasy fingers and everything and not worry about like messing up my camera. So
that's true, though. The GH5 is weatherproofed, so you could probably take that in the shower once you're done.
Don't want to do that. So, talking about Hermes, you said that you have been putting the Hermes extruder with the Supervolcano hot end on your Raptor 3D printer.
Yes. Actually, just today, I've posted the first photo of that today. So the Raptor by itself is already a weird setup where it's like it's lipstick on a pig to a certain extent, where the you can tell it's a janky printer that's been tuned up with a few good components, which makes it actually fun to use because it's big, it's sort of kind of reliable. Yes, it has its limitations. It has limitations. It might catch on fire, but it's fun to print with it. But the big limitation has been the extruder, which is just hot garbage. So Hermes on there, Supervolcano on there. It has just finished printing a gear, which is super quickly done. It's super consistent. I think that's what the printer should have from the factory.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, why we're bringing up the Hermes, which by the way is not out yet, and neither of us can tell you when exactly it's going to be out. So sorry about that. Though I actually don't know when exactly it's going to be out.
I heard rumors. I think it will be out this year at some point, but they are making sure that they get QC right this time. This is the reason why it is why it hasn't been released to the larger public so far. And that's a good thing.
And we will be talking about that in the news section as well.
Oh, yes.
But yes, one thing that you mentioned about what prints like that, large layer prints look like, is the entire PLA matte versus dull finish. And what I've noticed on the Supervolcano printing black dust filament PLA, because they gave me like 4 of the 2.5 or 2 point something kilogram rolls, which were like, which were rolls that they would throw away because they're not full or they have some sort of an issue. But mine come out super shiny, super glossy, perfectly heated through. And what you mentioned when you were printing fast, you got the opposite.
So I made a customer project a couple of months ago. He wanted like a fancy business card holder, and I thought, okay, how can I use 3D printing for that? And yada yada. However, I wanted to make a fast prototype for him, and I printed it using the fast profile and Prusa slicer on my Mark II, which is 0.35 millimeter layer height with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, which is already quite interesting. But the thing I noticed was printing that fast and with that amount of material, my black PLA prints turned out totally dull with a really nice matte finish, which looked awesome. So the thing probably is, even though it was printing like at 210 degrees Celsius, the material probably did not have enough time to properly melt through and ended up with this matte surface finish in the end. Which is something really nice, because often people are looking for that matte finish, and there are some filaments which like always turn out matte after printing, but just like tuning in maybe printing temperature or the amount of material you squeeze out of the nozzle might be also a measure to adjust like the glossiness or the matteness of your 3D prints.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's what's happening with the Supervolcano in my case, because it's just so long. Like, it's pushing out a ton of material, but it gets a ton of time to thoroughly heat through.
Yeah.
So I'm printing at 210, though I'm not trusting that thermistor at all. But still, it's getting to that temperature at the end, and if you're just pushing more material through a standard V6 block, it's getting less time to actually heat up.
Well, so the melt zone in like a normal V6 nozzle is probably, let's say, 10 millimeters, and the Supervolcano is 60, 70, something like that.
More than 4 times as long, for sure. And it's a copper block.
Okay.
So copper block and an 80-watt heater, which is quite crazy as far as the setup goes, but it heats up surprisingly slowly because it's just such a large thermal mass.
Are you able to just plug in that 80-watt heater on the normal mainboard of that printer? So are the MOSFETs, well, like made for that?
I guess it works. There's not been any smoke yet. But 80 watts, it's a 24 volt system. So 80 watts are what, a few amps, 4 amps, 3.5, 3?
Yeah.
Ish, 3 point something amps. So it's not a whole lot, like handleable for a standard setup. I'm worried about the connectors more because they're using those D-sub, those VGA monitor connectors. And I'm not sure how many pins of those they're using for the hot end heater. But for the most time, it's, the full load only applies when it's heating up. And then in steady state, it's just pulsing on and off. So, I mean, so far it's working.
Okay, cool. Really interesting. So we'll probably see some really big, thick layer prints from your Raptor in the near future.
Yeah, later today actually. I've already sliced like a vase that I printed. The twirly resin vase that I showed in the Elegoo Mars review. I printed at a 2x scale, though I think that the one on the Mars was scaled down already, and it was just like 800 grams of filament. I was like, maybe not do that as a test print. I'm sure it's going to turn out fine, but maybe start with something a bit smaller.
Well, if you have like 4 of these 2.5 kilo spools of PLA, you at least don't need to worry about running out of filament during the print.
Yes. And the Raptor really needs those big spools. Thankfully, it does have a filament sensor. So
okay, this was actually one of the things which was now fixed with like the new Ultimaker box filament storage thing. But the S5, well, all Ultimaker materials, they come on the 750 gram spools, and we did lots of printing at work. And if you have a big print, and you have the printing area of an S5, sometimes 750 grams of material is just not enough. And we actually had to buy filament from another manufacturer, just that we have like the 2.5 kilo spools that we can finish big prints over the weekend and not worry about running out of filament.
Oh yeah, well that unattended thing is its own. But the Ultimaker does have that NFC system where it keeps track of how much filament is on each spool, right?
But yeah, it does. But I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but I've been using like the Ultimaker 3 for 3 years. I never had any warning message telling me there's not enough filament on that roll. So I don't think they are actually using it for like telling you that you shouldn't use that spool of filament. And I don't understand why. Or I ever did something wrong. I just know that they are tracking it. You can check that on the NFC, and it is automatically adjusting like the printing profile and will cross-check with your cheat code if you have loaded the right material into the print core. Yeah. But as I said, never got the message that it's not enough. You also have one.
I have a regular Ultimaker 3, but I don't think you can actually turn off anything like warning messages. So if you're not seeing them, they're not in there, which is I need to check that.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. So moving from one big printer brand to another big printer brand, Prusa. Prusa's lit. There has been a Prusa fire, which hopefully by the time this podcast goes live, Prusa will have a blog post about it. I do have some inside information on that. Apparently, Prusas still don't catch on fire just by themselves. If you're not doing crazy stuff to the printer. I'm just gonna, that's all the information I'm gonna give right now. But yes, if you've seen the pictures of, oh my god, a Prusa Mark III caught on fire. I thought that only happened to AIM. It's like, yes, but it's not the printer's fault.
Okay. That's nice to hear, because it would be a pity, and it would be like a big problem for a company if like just one of their printers start catching fire.
Well, it doesn't seem to have been such a big problem for AIM. They're still selling machines.
Yeah, Chinese company, like at least European company. I don't know. They might handle something like that differently.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Prusa are on that topic. They have looked into it. They've actually diagnosed the printer on site, and they have found some things that hopefully they will pack up into a blog post.
Cool. Interesting. So
yeah,
I'll stay tuned for that.
Yes. Let's move on to the next big printer company, E3D.
E3D.
So you've noted down E3D plus Lulzbot and the Brexit.
Yeah, I thought you wrote that down, but now I remember that I wrote that down into the news section. So I don't know if those are, I think those are two separate topics. Let's maybe start with E3D and Brexit. So E3D is a UK company.
Yes.
And Brexit might be in like 2 days, 3 days?
No, they just got the extension, the flex tension.
Seriously?
Maybe January, maybe earlier, maybe later.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, but when I visited them, I also talked about, hey, how are you guys preparing for Brexit? And this is kind of bad because they also need to supply other 3D printing manufacturers with their parts. And I think, lots of companies who are in the UK, they had to prepare for that, and they had to buy like additional raw stock. They were sending out stuff like earlier than expected, just that their customers have more stock available. If you have this Brexit where, not everything is figured out and there might be complications with customs and things like that. And I also made sure that I purchased my E3D stuff before Brexit was happening, because I thought,
scheduled to happen.
Happen. Yeah. Because, I don't know how it will be with customs.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. But
and I think that's
this
a big
is
problem
one of the reasons why I usually don't really enjoy buying stuff from China, because I think I'm on some like customs list, and since like 2 years, all of my stuff is ending up in German customs. So yeah, buying things from like a European company where I don't need to worry about customs, even though the amount of money I paid for that stuff is over the limit of like the 40 bucks or 30 bucks thing. So yeah, if that is changing again, it's also bad for their business, because also people would think, okay, I will not buy directly from E3D anymore, because then I have to worry about customs.
Well, they're starting to get resellers set up, right?
Okay.
They've got meta hackers in the US already. I'm sure they've got some resellers in Germany within the future EU already.
They have now stock at Amazon, but having resellers is always, is sometimes bad for your business, because the reseller wants to have a cut.
No, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, with Brexit in general, what I'm learning basically is it's not the fact that Brexit is happening, how it's happening, when it's happening, whatever. It's the fact that nobody knows how, when, whether at all it's happening. Like uncertainty is the worst thing to have. I think it would be, at this point, it would be better to just run with a hard Brexit and figure it out and have certainty, than to be like, maybe in three months we're gonna do something, maybe not, because it's been like that in 3 years, and it's already been such a massive hit to the UK economy.
We'll see. All right, yeah. Lulzbot.
It sucks. Yeah, just to finish that up, E3D, I've talked to them as well. They've prepared for literally every single scenario that there could be, which is also costing a lot of money. Again, it's that uncertainty. So they are prepared no matter what, but it's been a pain to walk through.
Yeah. Lulzbot. This has been on the news. It was, I think, already like three weeks ago, but Lulzbot, they are scaling down their business.
Yeah, so I've briefly talked about that last week, 2 weeks ago with Keith on the last episode. So Lulzbot are the official information right now is Lulzbot are scaling down the business to like 10% of what they used to be.
Okay.
So they're laying off like 90%. Don't quote me on those numbers, but something around that. Because, well, money, they're not making enough of a profit. Yada yada yada.
Okay, yeah, it's a pity, and well, they're not the first ones where this is happening. I think with just the big influx of Chinese printers, like European and American companies, they have their problem finding their market. Probably also one of the reasons why Prusa starts selling their Prusa Mini, which is more aimed towards like the beginner machines.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Sure. I mean, it's actually saying that on their website.
Yeah.
Great beginner printer.
Yeah.
Lulzbot sounds a lot like Printabot, to be honest. Yeah. It sounds like a very similar setup, a very similar story. They, US based, very much focusing on actually producing stuff locally as much as they can. I think Lulzbot has been a bit bigger than Printabot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's the same issues they're running into. Now, Printabot was innovating a lot with Lulzbot, even though I liked their printers. Or maybe Printabot was innovating too much. They were trying to do too much with the Printabot Pro that was like all cloud and touchscreen and all that. Lulzbot maybe weren't innovating enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've not used their more recent printers, their Mini 2. I think they've actually suggested sending a Mini 2 to me for review, though I think that is that deal has expired. But yeah, if you look at how much Prusa is doing and how much Lulzbot is doing as far as development goes, I think there's a pretty clear difference of who's pulling ahead. And at some point, if you're selling premium printers, or printers in a premium price bracket, as Lulzbot was doing, you need to deliver on something. I think Lulzbot we're doing a lot when it comes to schools and curricula and all that. But yeah, that's a part of the market, but that's just not all of it. So
I still think that kind of the nice thing is that they're not bankrupt for the moment, which is positive for the current customers because they're still getting support.
Are they not?
I don't think so. I haven't read that because they still have their support team there. Support will still be done, but probably no more like engineering is happening at Lulzbot.
If you just plop in Lulzbot into Google News, there are two E3D.com articles. One from October 14th is, even though there are rumors, Lulzbot is not bankrupt. And then 4 days later, 3D printer market, is Lulzbot bankrupt after all? So, and the official word is not out yet.
Yeah. So things are happening there.
Yeah. It sucks. But
yeah, it's seriously.
It's the way the free market goes, right?
Yeah. But yeah.
Speaking of the free market, our transitions are on point today.
Oh yes.
Speaking of the free market, NordVPN. I've already tweeted about that. In the last Meltzone episode, I pointed out that they were suggesting, or their agency was suggesting, hey, why don't you point out like, you can go around censorship and post like 3D gun models and stuff if your country doesn't want you to with a VPN. I was like, no, I'm not sorry, I'm not touching that. Literally 2 days later, news broke that not something to laugh about, but yeah, 2 days later, the news broke that the terrorist attack from Halle was using quote unquote 3D printed guns. Yes, I know they were not 3D printed guns per se, but that's what they're being portrayed as. They were firearms made with 3D printed parts. Yeah, so not entirely 3D printed, but partially printed. And yeah, that was the first one where I was like, guys, you kind of missing the tone here. And then 2 days after I published the video, the news broke that they've been keeping a security breach on the wraps for 1.5 years. Which the breach itself apparently wasn't that much of a drama, but the fact that they didn't communicate it. it's just, I mean, for a company you rely on for security or safety, I never know which one it is. You like, if they have a breach like that, even though it was not super duper severe, it was a breach. They should have communicated that. They should have made it public, where where it's at least like, hey, this is what happened. This is what we did about it. It's taken care of. We'll keep you posted if something ever happens. Like, that should be the minimum of what you'd expect for a VPN company. They did not do that, and Jay's 2 cents actually has 1 or 2 videos about it. I think 1 video where he explains all that in full detail, and it's like he'll be ceasing cooperation work with NordVPN. I would be doing the same. I don't think I'm legally allowed to like remove the sponsorship from the existing video or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
but the question is, what are you supposed to do as an influencer in that situation where your sponsor screws up and there's nothing you could have done to vet against that? I feel bad for having promoted them, yes.
Yeah.
But then again, I could not have known.
No. I also thought about the same thing, and removing the video or just removing the sponsorship part, but then you have contracts and things like that. It's complicated. It's complicated at the moment. But, well, you never know. It could also happen with anybody else you do like sponsorships with.
That is, well, yeah, true. I mean, that's how it goes with sponsors in general. But thankfully, we have a great community of sponsors who will never let us down, which is our patrons. So thank you to you guys for allowing us, you and me both, to not having to take every sponsorship, no matter how dodgy it is, because there are very dodgy opportunities coming up quite regularly. So yes, we do vet our sponsors as best as we can.
Yeah.
When stuff happens, well, at least what I can do is clarify it on Twitter.
Yeah.
I follow on Twitter.
All right. Next topic. You want to do this one, or? Let's
do that one real quickly, because it kind of ties into that entire story. So after the attacks from Halle, of course, well, the one thing that's been happening is our fantastic conservative party was like, hey, we need to look at gamers because he used gamer slang. And apparently Steam is now a terrorist forum. I don't know. The other thing that happened is, of course, companies come forward and say, hey, we now have a solution that actually prevents printing illegal items, such as, in Germany at least, 3D printed firearms. So Dagoma, I think they're French, if I'm not mistaken, now have a software that prevents, certain designs, even if they're slightly modified, from being printed. I'm doing air quotes here right now, because what they're actually doing is they're publishing their code as open source. Yes, what they're actually doing is their Cura slicer is doing the detection. So not the printer itself, not on a G-code level, but their Cura. So, like, how is that supposed to do anything? Because it's still a G-code printer, right? It exports G-code. If their Cura 15.04, or I don't know which one it's built on, doesn't slice the part, you just use stock Cura, or you use Prusa Slice, or you use Simplify 3D, or some other software that slices it. You don't need to use their own. Like, is this for like, oops, I printed a gun. If only my software would have prevented that. That's the only thing that it's preventing, right?
Yeah.
It's
the only thing I'm worried about there is, like, at some point legislators will force 3D printer manufacturers to put like firmware on the printer that does something similar like that. It's kind of similar to the drone thing that has been happening for the last years. So when I built my first quadcopter 10 years ago, I was kind of the only one. Nowadays, everybody can like purchase a camera drone for a couple of bucks everywhere. And you legally need to have like a plate on them with your address and a code and things like that. You need like a flying license, even though you have
a certain weight.
Yeah, if you're above 250 grams or something like that. But also things like, I think the DJI drones, they have like no flight zones in their software, and GPS is preventing the drones to fly in there. It's like, at the moment, it's not, they don't need to do that. They are just promoting that as a feature. But I don't know, 10 years from now, there is a law that you can only buy 3D printers that are not able to print firearms. I don't know. I'm quite scared.
It reminds me of the entire upload filter debate.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a very similar issue where the technical implementation of what they're wanting to happen is so far out there, so close to being impossible. Well, it is in fact impossible to filter out everything. That even if there's a law for it, yes, that there's going to be some filtering maybe happening, but one, filtering and locking stuff away only works in an all closed source proprietary environment. And two, even then, people are going to find ways around it.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that very similar thing happened with currency. What's it called? Fake money. Fake money? There's a word for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So banknotes, fake banknotes copied. Apparently there was a scare that people would just put it into their copier and photocopy it. So now printers and Photoshop and scanners even, I think, will prevent currency from being, Photoshop will refuse to open like a dollar bill.
Yeah, because there's a specific dot pattern on the bill.
So, I mean, yeah, sure, Photoshop doesn't do it, but does GIMP do it? So, like, you can't, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It's only, I mean, for people who are doing legitimate stuff, it's just going to be an inconvenience.
Yeah.
And for people who still want to get into nefarious things with the software, they're still going to find a way around that.
Yeah.
And of course, we can expand that entire discussion into gun control, etc., which I do not want to do right now. But even if the internet is a big place, like you can't, you're going to have to deal with it. You can't control it all.
Nope. Yeah. All right, but I think you kind of talked in extent about that topic in the last special podcast episode. So if you guys are interested and haven't listened to that, check that one out.
Yeah, that is episode 24.
Yeah. Another thing, so news section is pretty long currently. Fusion360 is changing their subscription model. Like again, I haven't like figured 100% out what that changes for myself, but somehow I got an email, and if you're opening Fusion360 right now, it tells you that the subscription model changed, and you need to like reapply for the entrepreneur's license or your free license or things like that.
For me, it's telling me, hey, there's now a year's end sale, and you can save 30% of your annual subscription if you buy now. Though I'm on the startup license, you are too, right?
Yes.
Which technically we don't need to be, apparently. So we can use the free license because we're using it, and I think that is one of the changes, maybe, because the free license now explicitly states you can use it for YouTube, videos, blogs, or other web content. Though they're not. So again, the wording on the website is not very clear on that, as it has never been on Autodesk's Fusion360 page. Though I believe the official information from one of the Fusion360 representatives, which Keith, that I talked to last time, is, or at least has contact to, confirmed that the free license is okay for YouTube, even if you make more than the $1,000 of revenue to make or from your videos. So apparently that is only on actually selling designs or selling parts that are made with Fusion 360, not on content produced on it. Though we're both in the startup license, and literally nothing is changing, right?
I'm currently checking, but I thought there were a little less features there. But well, okay. So there's one thing that is different. You can't import any SolidWorks files in the free Fusion 360 version.
Totally free one, yes.
In a totally free one. But in the like entrepreneur's license, that is included, the commercial translator, or how it's called. The other thing, I think, but I haven't checked, generative design is...
So the way it used to be back in the day was the generative design was not part of the startup license. I couldn't use it, but was it part of the free license?
I think there wasn't a free license before. There was just like the free and startup license, and then there was the paid version. I think the free one is now completely new. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm quite sure. Because
what were people using? I mean, it was free for makers.
Well, it was free for makers, but it was the same license as the startup. There was one license for personal use, startups, hobby use, and then there was, which had to be renewed every year, I think. And then there was the commercial one.
Needs to be. Okay.
Yeah. What I'm currently reading, so generative design was only available in the commercial license so far. This is the reason why I and probably you haven't been using it so far. And generative design is like a more, not more complex, but it's a topology optimization with more features than the topology optimization that was in Fusion 360, which is kind of nice.
It goes the other way. Topology optimization takes away material that is not needed, where generative design will actually design the part for you, or at least linkages, basically.
Nah, it's the same.
Right?
No, it's the same.
No, generative design, you have like an eye that you bolt down, another eye you define your forces, and then it creates the geometry between it. That is the entire outset for generative design in Fusion, right?
But that's exactly the same with topology optimization. You still need to define your design space. Generative design is just more advanced because you can I think define load cases in a better way. You can do studies in there way easier. I think it's just a more advanced version of topology optimization. Okay, and I'm very sure.
Generative design actually creates actual geometry, like features, as far as I'm aware, or at least clean geometry, while topology optimization just creates a mesh. Right? That is the big difference.
I need to check that. But well, internally also generative design probably creates the same geometry. I don't know if they have like an automatic algorithm to convert that triangular shape STL thing from like the topology optimization into perfectly like polynerb structure, which is nice and smooth.
Yeah, well, that's what the result of generative design is from Fusion.
It's just cleaned up.
Doesn't look like it, but okay. Maybe a Fusion representative can correct us on that. Because neither of us have been using it for our private stuff, obviously, because we don't have access to it.
Yeah, okay, but it tells me right here, okay, like editable geometry. But I think it's kind of the same as if you would run topology optimization and then use the how's it called, shapes module on Fusion 360 or something like that, where you can also do the polynerb structures, which is
you can create that from mesh.
Yeah. Well, you have to do it manually.
Okay,
like it's kind of similar as having a ball of clay that you shape to the desired shape. But it's gonna be interesting. I really want to do more in the direction of generative design, topology optimization, just also from my engineering background. So I'm really looking forward to maybe be able to try that out, even though I might have just been able to ask Autodesk, but who does it help if I can do it but nobody else can do it?
Yeah. So one as far as I'm aware, one of the big features of the free version had that the very free end user version, if there ever was such a thing, had was 5-axis CNC, where the even the smallest paid license was more limited than what the free version did. So that's one of the things that used to be a difference, though I'm not sure how much it still is.
Yeah.
But then again, if you're using the free version, you're probably not using a 5-axis CNC, so I'm not sure how relevant that is.
And what I have heard is that Fusion is aiming more and more towards into the additive manufacturing side of making. So there is already a module for metal support structure and metal additive manufacturing in there, but I don't know, maybe we will see a whole slicer in Fusion 360 at some point.
Yeah, I mean, NetFab is part of Autodesk, and NetFab is everything. It's geometry manipulation, it's slicing, it's fixing. So I would not be surprised if that moves into Fusion 360, because I mean, Fusion, as the name implies, is supposed to be like the fusion of all the tools from different disciplines into one big chunk of software.
Yeah, which would be cool.
Who knows what other results, what implications that's going to have as far as cost or availability or whatever goes.
But we talked about that, I think, on the last podcast. Things like having subtractive and additive manufacturing just in one tool. That would be a benefit of having something like that. So who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
If a software comes out that does like the tool changer additive subtractive combination, then it's probably going to be Fusion.
Yeah,
fairly
definitely.
sure of it. Cool. Should we do one last news topic?
Yeah,
one quickie that
I really want to talk about that.
You do or you do not?
No, I really want to talk about that.
Okay.
Because
Elegoo water washable resin.
So I think we both have been approached by Elegoo, and Elegoo has also been putting out a little bit of advertising for that, but they are currently working on a water washable resin, which is, I think, not something totally new, but usually the resins that we're using in our 3D printers, they are washed with either denatured alcohol or IPA.
Any organic solvent, really.
Yeah, some kind of a solvent. They are developing a resin that is water washable. And at first, you might say, oh, that's pretty cool. I can save all of the money I spend on IPA or alcohol and just wash
stop drinking, man.
And just wash it in like pure tap water, which is cool. But
you can definitely do. Like, you can wash it in tap water.
You can wash it in tap water. The thing that is concerning me that much is that the thing that is concerning me, if you take a look at the safety data sheet, how do you call that in like
MSDS,
material safety, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're taking a look at that document, the resin is still horribly harmful to the environment.
It's still monomers, right? It's still the same uncured stuff.
Yeah, it's still like nasty stuff. And people are lazy. People are thinking, okay, yeah, it won't hurt anybody if I now wash my 3D prints in the sink because it's cheaper, it's way more comfortable. I have running water in there. I can clean out everything perfectly. But
you don't have to worry about disposing the contaminated IPA. It's great.
That stuff is nasty. And with resins like that, a part of it will end up in our sewage system and therefore again in our environment. And that is really concerning me. And this was the reason why I told them, no, I will not be working on that, because I think people are lazy. People are, sorry for that word, stupid, and will wash that resin and flush it down the drain.
Yeah. Which, you know that. Yeah.
Which I think is...
Who didn't put his phone on mute? Huh?
Ah, man. it was Joe. So
okay, well. Valid.
He was asking if I have an SL1 in my box behind me. No, I don't.
How does he? Is he watching us live?
No, he's not watching us live. I think I tweeted a picture of like the black box behind me on Twitter. Well, coming back to the topic. The thing is, I think people will not start pouring down the IPA that they use to wash their resin down the drain, because even though it probably might be possible, it's different.
Hey, don't underestimate people. You know that saying. Imagine like the average citizen.
Yeah.
Or actually, I guess technically it has to be imagine the median citizen. And 50% of the population are dumber than them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the thing is, still with washing the resin in IPA, there is a problem with how do you get rid of that. But water, and even water with resin, is easily poured down the drain. IPA, I put my stuff just outside and let it evaporate, and the stuff that is left over, which is then also like partly cured, I just dispose that in the trash.
Okay, question on that, because I'm not entirely positive that that's the best thing to do either, because they're just evaporating volatile organic compounds, VOCs, into the atmosphere isn't so fantastic either. I think there's something going on with like ozone generation when like UV rays hit that, or something along those lines. I've not read into that, but there's a limit for how much VOC can be like in paints and stuff for a reason, because we don't want to release that into the atmosphere.
Because you usually put the paint, inside your house. It's
too, but
it's definitely still not the perfect way to dispose it. You probably should just take it to your like recycling sites. How do you say dump yard, where they have like a collection for really hazardous materials.
Yeah,
that might be like the really best thing to do. But evaporating the IPA and disposing the rest, which is, as I said, then partly cured because it's outside, you have the UV light. I think it's a better way and a safer way than just pouring it down the drain. If it's the best thing,
I would not encourage that, but I think burning it would actually, or not burning it as in like burning it with the resin, but if you just burn it with in a pot, it's just going to burn the VOCs and not the resin. That may actually be better in the end.
Probably. Well, I used it to start a couple of fires this summer, so I burned part of it, and
then you're also burning the resin. So
yeah.
No. Okay, back to the washable water washable stuff. I think the really shady part about that is the way that it's being marketed, where it is being washed in something that looks like a tap, in something that looks like running water, that looks like it's going into a sink. I think that is painting the wrong picture, and is highly misleading.
Yeah.
What's going on out there? So the way that it's being marketed is very misleading, though. As we've discussed before, it can be an upside and an advantage if you have like really large prints where you don't want to deal with like massive amounts of IPA. And water is less harmful than IPA itself. So IPA obviously is like hand sanitizer. It kills pretty much anything that it gets in its way. And if you just pour your IPA down the drain, even if it's clean IPA, that is not all too fantastic either, because with stuff like wastewater treatment that is based on bacteria, on living things chewing up your waste water and cleaning it. I don't think they're doing all that well if you have 3 gallons of IPA in the tank, which is like a disinfectant and killing living things. So yeah.
But like per definition, so this is some IPA I bought in our pharmacy a couple of years ago. It's at least not harmful for water and how do you say?
Okay.
In Germany, well, in Germany we say für. Well, like it's dangerous. It's flammable, but I think it's not too bad, like for the environment, because it dilutes nicely. It evaporates away, and it's things. Still, you probably should pour that down the drain.
You should not do that. Yeah,
you should not do that. You just said that if you have a big printer, like for example the new PO Poly, how's it called?
Phenom.
Phenom.
Always reminds me of the AMD 4-core processor from back then. 4 and 6-core, I think was the big one. Yeah.
If you have such a printer with such a big printing volume, you don't want to mess around with like 3 gallons of IPA just to wash your parts. So for something like that, it could definitely be beneficial. But still, in the end, you need to think about how do you do with the leftover water that is contaminated with the resin. And as I said, people are stupid. People will pour it down the drain, and that's bad for everyone, because currently we have problems with microplastics, and in 10 years we have problems with monomers everywhere in our water.
Yep. I wasn't listening to what he just said. I was reading the German safety data sheet on IPA, but I'm sure you made a good point. But back to the do not pour IPA down the drain. Point 6.2 Umweltschutzmaßnahmen. Nicht in die Kanalisation, Oberflächenwasser, Grundwasser gelangen lassen. Mit viel Wasser verdünnen. Bei Eindringen in Gewässer oder Kanalisation sofort zuständige Behörden benachrichtigen. So, let me just translate that into English real quick. Don't effing pour it down the drain. And if you actually do, you need to contact your authorities because you've just contaminated the drainage system.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Still bad.
It's yeah.
I would be interested if anyone has like proper information how you should dispose the leftovers of like the washed resin. I think the best way would be to get it to the Problemstoffsammlung.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is it okay to burn it? Is it okay to evaporate the IPA and dispose the rests?
If someone has the material science or the environmental science background, please let us know in the comments or send us an email, because we're both kind of curious about that. Right now, I'm just stockpiling like jugs of IPA that are contaminated to various degrees.
Did you ever notice that? Yeah, at some point you do the right thing.
Get rid of it somehow.
Start a big fire. The thing that I found out a couple of months ago. So I had a UV light next to one of the containers I store my washing IPA in. And suddenly it looked like as if it was a snow globe. So like white stuff started forming in there. And I think that was part of the resin polymerizing in the IPA.
Yeah. I'm seeing the same in some of my containers, though I am not sure how much they can actually, or the monomers can actually polymerize when they're thinned down so much, because they need like another monomer to connect to. And when they're like so far spread out by, being suspended in the solvent, I don't think you can ever get like 100% out of it.
Yeah.
Though possibly there's something going on that is getting them to polymerize. So I'm seeing that too.
All right. So much
Talked
on the news.
way long about it than we wanted to, or intended to. Do we even have time to talk about the topic of the week today?
We are. How far are we in? We are an hour.
1 minute. 1 hour 7 minutes.
Seriously. Well, let's just talk about that briefly.
Yeah, that's worked out great before.
Or no, let's save that topic for the next podcast. So the thing we want to talk about is multi-material printing versus multicolor printing, what types there are, what benefits they have. If you guys have ideas on that, if you have found really nice applications for multi-material or multicolor printing, leave them down below and we might include them in the next podcast. I think just for the sake of time, it's probably better to delay that.
Yeah, because you need to get going at some point today.
Yes, I do.
I would love to drag this out and keep talking to you, but unfortunately, there are commitments, I assume. So let's answer a question instead from Jose, Fabian Torre. Sorry, Jose. My 3D printer started to make some noise when it is preheating. What could it be? It sounds like it's from the fan or extruder area.
That reminded me of my Mark 2.5 making noise from the heat bed at some point, at some firmware upgrade. I don't know if you have noticed that as well, that during heating, the printer starts making like a clicking noise or something like that. No,
maybe maybe though I'm not like entirely paying attention to all the different noises that are going on.
Okay, so the thing is that my Mark II is usually in my office, so if I'm sitting next to it, that's the reason why I noticed it. And there was just a blog post on Prusa Printers released where they talk about how they made the heat bed silent again. And in the end, it turned out that the heat bed itself acted like a loudspeaker, like a driver. And the PWM frequency they used resulted in the heat bed making strange noises. And they played around with that, changed the PWM frequency, and in the end, it became silent again. So things like power supplies can make noises if they are, run at, not their optimal, how do you say, like their optimal like working point. But
and like partial load, basically. Yeah. Though that is a different noise than what the it's a different kind of method of how that noise gets changed. Well, maybe not quite actually. Somewhat similar, but different than what the heated bed is doing or the hardened is doing, right?
For PSU, it's usually coming from the transformer, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because capacitors can make noise actually too, but
okay.
So typically it's, if you have like a step down DC-DC converters, once they go into burst mode, where they stop just clocking consistently and they go into like clock, pause, clock, pause, that you can hear. Actually, phone power supplies, if you have them just plugged in and no phone connected and charging, that's the noise you hear. But with the heated bed, it was different, right?
Yeah.
So I've just taken a really quick read through the article, and I think I've talked to Prusa like 2 or 3 years ago about this topic, because they've been at it for a while. I think even with the Mark II, they've been thinking about this or evaluating this. So what they're doing is, instead of doing a hard switch when PID on a printer is not, hey, now I'm giving it like 20% power, now I'm giving it 30% power to like even out the temperature and keep it at a temperature, but all the printer can do is switch it on, switch it off, switch it on, switch it off. And with a bed, it's typically at a very low frequency, so you hear that click, 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 about that frequency, where the bed just turns on and off. What they're doing is they're fading those individual pulses in and out, basically. So they're creating more of a sine. Well, I guess it's like a trapezoidal current waveform, more or less. They're fading that in and out, so you're not getting that hard click, but you're kind of fading the current in and out. So that is how that is generated. Is, I think it's actually speakers. It's not thermal contraction or expansion. Expansion is more like a piezo speaker kind of how does this piezo speaker actually work? God. Fields, magnets, stuff deforming. So that's that. And it can probably be a very similar thing with Jose's sound that he's hearing from the harden and fan and extruder area.
Could it be that you have a, strange effect on the fan just because a component or a wire next to it, like with induction, is turning on and off, and you induce like a current in the fan wire, and the fan is like partially starting to spin all of the time? Or is that far-fetched?
Possible. I mean, it's possible, but probably not exactly what is happening. Now, what of course you can hear is, if you're saying it's from the extruder area, is just the extruder motor being powered on and the stepper driver making or running at some frequency that is audible in the motor. So let me finish that thought real quick. What you can actually hear is, because the PWM from the harden is typically faster, because you don't need to worry so much about switching losses. You can run the MOSFET a bit faster, which honestly with a bed or with a harden is not much of an issue in the setups we're seeing. But because the PWM frequency is so much faster, it is kind of pulsing the power supply voltage, because you're adding and removing load from the power supply, and it's kind of dipping up and down, and maybe or possibly the extruder or motor driver for the extruder motor is picking up on that and is kind of transmitting that into how much current it's pushing into the motor. So you may hear the harden turning on and off from the motor through the driver.
Yeah. So it could just be the case that the motor is like turned on and not just idle. It's turned on. It has its holding torque that's energized, and that is usually making a noise.
Yeah, and of course, once you add that voltage ripple from some load being applied and taken away, that may transmit to the motor. But it may also be something entirely different. Like, without having a sample of this noise, it is incredibly hard to diagnose something.
The reason I put it in there is because I have read about the heat bed noise issue on the Prusa printers, and I thought it might be interesting to talk about that. And their new developer diaries that Prusa started putting out are really interesting, because they are going into lots of technical stuff from the background. So if you guys are interested, take a look at prusaprinters.org or blog.prusaprinters.org, or check the link in the description. It's the second developer diary so far, but there will probably be more. And it's not just, look at this nice print. It's really going into details, lots of technical stuff. I enjoyed reading them.
All the challenges they run into, because it's, if you see the finished feature, it's like, sure, that makes sense, but getting there is usually the harder part. And again, it shows, as I've mentioned with Lulzbot versus Prusa, it shows that Prusa are actually putting a ton of development effort into their machines, into just tuning the details that probably people wouldn't notice. But in the end, they all add up to be a better experience than if it's just what we used to have. And of course, it's all open source, so it's going back into the community, which is fantastic.
All right. I think that's it for today.
Already?
Yeah, I gotta leave in a couple of minutes, so we will have another episode in 2 weeks coming up. Less news, hopefully, and more like topic of the week.
Yeah, let's try and get into a more regular interval again, because these last 2 weeks for both of us have been full of travel and events and just special episodes, which aren't getting that many views as far as the podcast goes, but it's fun to do them. So see you again in 2 weeks. Stefan, thanks for being here. Thank you all for watching. Support us on Patreon. And see you again soon.
See you again. Bye.
Bye.